Okay, so right now we're going to do lesson 3.5. We're learning a new type of equation called point slope form. And the reason for the name is because all you need is a point and the slope to be able to use this and then turn it into slope intercept form, which is what we're going to practice today. Okay, so this is what the point slope formula looks like, and it's important that you remember this, okay? So it's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So this y and this x, you want to keep them as variables. You do not want to change them. This m is what it's always been, it's the slope. The y1 and the x1 are coordinates or an ordered pair, okay, where you will plug in your x and your y. And then the point of this is if you're given that specific information, you can use it to get a slope-intercept equation or any other equation that you need, okay? Standard form would be another one. So let's go ahead and practice this. I want everyone to write the equation out first. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And what we're going to do is we're going to plug in what we know. So the slope here is m, your 4 is x1, and your 6 is y1. So we're going to just plug those numbers in where they go. So when we plug them in, we get y minus our y1, which is 6. And then our slope, m, is 3 times x minus x1, which is 4. Okay. And then we're just going to solve it. So we distribute our 3 to both terms here, and we end up with y minus 6 equals 3x minus 12. And your goal is to get it in that slope-intercept form, which is up here, and we probably should have memorized at this time. And so then the last thing we will do is we will add 6 to both sides, and we end up with y equals 3x minus 6. And now we have this in slope-intercept form. All right. I want to go down and do example 2 here before we do the practice, unless if you've already started the practice, that's okay. But I want to do example 2, and then I want you to do practice 1 and 2 on your own. So let's come down here to example 2. I want you to write out the equation again. And the reason I want you to write it out is because by the time this lesson is done, you should have it memorized, okay? So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, point slope form. Okay, we're going to plug in what we know. Now, be very careful when you plug in that -6, because what you're doing is you're subtracting a -6, which is the same as adding a +6. So just be careful when you plug in those negatives. And then we have a slope of -3 times x minus our x1, which is 4. And now we just solve the equation for slope-intercept. So we'll distribute our -3. Yeah, did I miss that? Okay, okay. Oof. All right, are there any questions on how to do this? Okay, I want you to go ahead and do practice 1 and practice 2 on your own, and then we'll come back and check it. Okay, I want you to go ahead and check practice 1 and 2. Make sure you understand it. Make sure you got input. Okay. And you're gonna notice on the back, it's just more of this, but there are some variations with your numbers and sometimes you have fractions and all of that. So I went through the homework just to see what kind of problems you're gonna have. And so I put in all those different variations. So when we move to the back, it looks like, a lot of work here, but it's just a lot of practice to make sure you have this down. So what I want you to do is I'm going to have you do example and practice 3, and then we'll come back and check it, and then we'll move on to 4. Okay, so I'm going to do the examples with you, and then you'll do the practice on your own. So let's do example 3. I'm going to write out my slope formula. I'm going to plug in what I have. Now your x is a -2, so make sure that you pay attention to that. And oops, I forgot to put my m on there. Put m instead of 4. Put 4. And so this will change to a positive. Distribute. Okay. And then I'm going to add that 8 to both sides. And I end up with y equals 4x plus 16. Are there any questions on that example? Okay, let's go down to example 4. I'm going to plug in my numbers. So my y is a -6. So it's going to be, I'm going to add a 6. And notice how I'm taking out some of those steps just by looking at it. And my slope is a -3. And my x1 is also negative. So I'm going to add that. Okay. And I'm going to subtract my 6. All right. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, so I want you to do practice 3 and practice 4 on your own, and then we'll check them, and then we'll get down to these where you're dealing with fractions and zeros. When you're finished, check practice 3 and practice 4. Okay. Now we're going to move on to fractions. Yay. Okay. So process is the same, except you may have to add or subtract some fractions. So let's look at example 5. We're going to plug in our numbers. So our y1 is 5. So y minus 5. Our slope is 1/3. And our x is 4. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, and just like before, we're going to distribute our slope. Okay, and we end up with y minus 5 equals 1/3 x minus 4/3. Okay. Oh, yes, 1/3 x. Thank you. Then we're going to add our 5 to both sides. Okay. Not in this situation, you wouldn't want to do that. Okay, so now what I have, and I'm going to bring this over to the side, is I have -4/3 plus 5/1. And I need to make common denominators. So I multiply the top and bottom, the numerator and the denominator of 5 by 3 so that I can have common denominators. So I have negative 4/3 plus 15/3. And that gives me 11/3. So we're going to be doing some fraction work here. So I want you to try practice 5. Okay. Okay, go ahead and check it when you are finished. Are there any questions on that? Okay. Okay. Okay, let's go to 6. And we're going to do the same thing, except we have a 0 in our ordered pair. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug those in. Our y1 is 0. Our slope is -4. And our x1 is 3. Okay, so we're going to distribute that -4. And now I'm going to go through this process, but once you understand it, you can totally skip this part right here and get rid of your 0. But when I add 0 to both sides, we just basically nothing's happening. So we have y equals -4x plus 12. So when you get to this point up there, if it's 0, you don't even have to put it. You can just put y equals.
So you skip this.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and do practice 6. So check your practice 6. Okay, we're going to move on to the back, which is a little bit different. Okay. So now you're given 2 ordered pairs and not the slope. So we just did a whole lesson on finding slope from 2 ordered pairs, right? So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? Is that correct? Is that what we did? Yes. Okay, so that's what we're going to do first. And once we have our slope, we use one of the points to plug into the point slope formula and find our slope intercept. So here is x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so let's find that slope. We have m equals, we're going to do x2 or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we can plug those numbers in. So y2 is -5. Y1 is 3, so -5 minus 3. X2 is -4, and x1 is a +4, so it's -4 minus 4. Okay. So -5 minus 3 is a -8. -4 minus 4 is a -8. So we have a slope of 1. Okay. Now, what I would like for you to do when you're doing your work is use that first ordered pair so that we all are working on the same, with the same numbers. It doesn't matter which ordered pair you use, you will get the same equation in the end. But just to help us as we're looking and checking each other's work, let's use the first point on all of these.
Restore or it equals 1, circle that.
So on this, you have a slope of 1. That was the first step, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to plug that into the point slope equation to find our slope intercept equation. So we have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we're going to use this ordered pair up here and our slope. So let's plug those numbers in. We have y minus y1 is 3. Our slope is 1 times x minus our x1 is 4. And then we solve like we did on the previous 2 pages. Okay. We're gonna do the examples on this page, and then I'm gonna have you do the practice. The final answer is your slope intercept equation. Now, if you get the slope right, then you do get partial credit for that, so you want to make sure you can see the slope. Okay, let's go down to example 8. Okay, so we're gonna find the slope first. Okay, so we have x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so let's plug those in. So we have our y2, which is 2, and our y1, which is a -2. So we're going to add those. Then we have our x2, which is -4, and our x1, which is 2. So -4 minus 2. And so make sure your slope is correct. And then we're going to use this first point, and we're going to plug it into the slope formula to find our slope intercept formula. Okay, so we're going to use 2, -2. So we have y plus 2 because it's minus a negative. Our slope is -2/3. We have x minus 2. So we get to solve some fractions again. So we're going to distribute this -2/3. And we have y plus 2 equals -2/3 x plus 4/3. And then we have to subtract 2 on both sides. And so over here, I'm going to solve my fraction. So I have 4/3 minus 2 over 1. My denominator is 3, so I multiply my 2 over 1, my numerator and denominator, by 3. And I get 4/3 minus 6/3. Okay.
Y2 minus no vector. Like the one that the beginning.
Look here.
Yeah, I just found x2 minus x1 y2 minus 1.
No, it's change in y over change in x. So your y goes on top and your x goes on bottom. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, make sure you do that. So you have an answer of y equals -2/3 x minus 2/3. Okay. Okay. All right, let's do example 9. So we have our slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Plug in those numbers. So we have 2 minus 7 over -5 minus 0.
2 minus 7.
Oh, yeah, 2 minus 7, like that's not right. Okay. So you get -5 over -5, which gives us a +1. So I'm going to use that first point, 0, 7, and my slope of 1 to find my slope-intercept equation. So we have y minus 7 equals 1 times x minus 0. So okay, then we're going to add 7. And you have your final answer. So go ahead and check that. And then once you check that, I want you to do all the practice problems. And then when you're done with that, you can start on your homework, but we'll come back and check in just a minute. Okay, here is 7. So go ahead and check that one. Okay. And then here is 8. Okay, and here is 9. Did everyone get 8 right? Or is there anyone who got a different answer?
Oh, yeah, this is.
All right, so that is the end of lesson 3.5.